So today we watched another documentary for
Yes.
Black History Month. This one was called
I Am Not Your Negro.
I'm Not Your Negro. 2016. I guess James Baldwin or
Yeah, it was his writing.
yeah, I guess based on his book or writing or something
Yeah.
along those lines. Okay.
So, IMDb for this one is writer James Baldwin tells the story of race in modern America with his unfinished novel, Remember This House.
Alright, so I guess we're kind of doing the documentaries a little different. Just kind
Yep.
of going through stuff we learned or like stuff that stood out to us.
Yeah,
and
so it's
things
interesting
along that,
things we learned or we thought were important to mention.
Yeah.
We wanted to mention.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of kick it off.
Okay.
The first thing that really stuck out to me, and kind of sticks out to me with a lot of these like civil rights movement movies, is just the age of people.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it shocks me on like both fronts of like these people were young, like going through these
Yeah.
protests. Like MLK was like 20, his like mid-20s in his
Yeah.
prime, and he was like 30 when he died. So that from that aspect, and then also the aspect of like we saw a lot of like videos of like racist high schoolers in like the late 60s.
Yeah.
And like these people are now like
They're not
70s,
dead.
60s, like 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
And like they still have a lot of influence in this country. So I think
Yeah.
that's like probably the most shocking thing that
That's always
I saw
shocking.
in
When
this
you remember
film.
ages. And it always helps when they show videos of MLK in color.
Yeah.
That always helps, and
exactly,
they did a bit of that. So it always helps to see like him in color, so you know it wasn't like a million years ago.
Yeah.
But then once you realize it wasn't a million years ago, you're like, yeah, they were just in high school. They're not that much.
Yeah, no, exactly.
They're not like on death's door now.
Yeah.
They're
No,
still
they're
alive.
like 70, like owners of companies,
Yeah.
like CEOs, like government officials. So like it's kind of a problem that's just very deep.
Yeah. Most of the things that I have are quotes, just because I thought there were so many really good quotes he said. I'll like expand on my thoughts on them a bit, but most of what I have is quotes. One of the ones that I thought that was really good was white people don't want to believe, much less act on their belief, and this was about Birmingham. And I just thought that was so pertinent because a lot of times when people are talking about racism nowadays, they're saying there's no excuse to not know something. Like you can't feign ignorance on things like this because we've been telling you about this forever. And I think that it's important to note that maybe people aren't claiming ignorance in the fact that they don't know or like believe, but they just don't want to act on it. It's kind of like, yeah, you know this is happening, but like knowing and doing something about it are two separate things.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of like important to know. I thought it was interesting to mention, especially with today, people always saying, how can you not know this? Like, I think a lot of people do just know, and they're just not doing anything.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up this quote, because like that was kind of one thing I wanted to mention. Like he just like had a very beautiful way of putting things.
Yeah,
And very powerful way of putting things. There were like a couple of scenes where he just like really just like I guess gave like a large speech or interview.
Yeah, and I was trying to like listen to those. I was trying to like part listen and part be like, and I want to never forget this ever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good.
One moment at the end, he said something along the lines of, we have the advantage like as black people because we had to look at you all these
Oh, I
years,
have that
and
written down.
You never looked at us.
Part of it was like, you cannot lynch me and keep me in ghettos without being something monstrous yourself, and you gave me the advantage. I had to look at you. You never had to look at me. Nothing can be changed until it is faced.
Yeah, and it's like I know more about
it got
you
it got a little funky in my interpretation at the end, but that's more or less what it was.
But no, I just really like that quote. I think it's like a powerful, kind of like really a powerful way of saying the difference between black and white people in America. Like, white people were able to ignore us, we weren't able to ignore them.
Yes.
So now that we're all trying to live together, there's that disconnect, and I think he did a good job of just like verbalizing it. So.
Yeah. Another quote I had to do with the white, when he was on the talk show that was part of the framing device, and this white scholarly man from Harvard, I want to say, was like, how can you guys always have to make everything about race? And he gave a beautiful response, but part of it was, you're asking me, and this is again, me kind of like paraphrasing. He was like, you're asking me to put myself and basically everyone I love on the line for an America that I cannot experience. And I love that.
Not that he just can't, one that he has not experienced.
Yeah, that he has not
experienced. Been proven to exist.
Yeah, because the white guy was like, you probably have more in common with a white scholar than a black person that you just see on the street. And he's like, no, dude.
It's like, maybe that's true, but I've never been able to even like get to that
experience
point. Like I haven't even gotten there yet, you know?
Yeah.
Like you kick me before I even get to that scholar point.
Yeah.
So
I love
what does
it.
it matter?
So if anyone ever says, why do you always have to make it about race? Just like, have this conversation in your head and just be ready. Because like, that's another big thing that comes up a lot. Like, why do we always have to make it about race? We can like divide people like other differences, like based on and it's like, but race is the one that's kind of like fucking my life up.
Yep. Yeah, I guess the other point I kind of wanted to touch on, I liked how he had the kind of the comparison between MLK, Malcolm X, and Medgar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who Medgar is.
Oh, me neither.
And I feel kind of bad. I felt kind of
I
bad not
did too.
knowing
I
who
was
he
like, Medgar. Oh,
yeah,
the
movie didn't explain anything about him that much to me at least. But I just thought it was like something interesting that like that's something I didn't know, and like now I kind of want to look up his story.
Yeah,
a little bit,
and apparently he was the youngest of the three, and he died first. And he also had the comparison of like when you're a sibling, you kind of like expect the older to teach the younger, with the expectation that the older will die first.
Then again, going back into how young all these people were.
Yeah, they were all so.
But so I kind of just want to do more research on Medgar.
Yeah.
Just go see what that was.
Yeah. Another pertinent quote that I got was, "The story of the Negro in America is the story of America. It is not a pretty story." And the reason I like that one so much is because every time something particularly heinous happens, the first thing like the people in power like to say is, "This is not us. This is not who we are. We are not this." However, I can only think of a Harry Potter quote and like another random quote, and you're not even at this point in Harry Potter yet. But it's the measure of a man is not how he treats his equals, but how he treats those who are inferior.
Actually, I think I did just get to that point.
Oh, you did?
I did just get to that.
Oh, okay. But that's a quote in Harry Potter, and then there's another thing that is constantly going around where it's like, we're not free until the most marginalized of us are free.
Yeah.
Which is always said in terms of like Black Lives Matter, where we're always trying to like make sure that we include Black trans lives. But that's just to say that we need to stop painting the story of America as pretty, because we're kind of like, you have to look at the people who are the most disenfranchised, and their story is the most ugly. It's
and honestly, it even kind of goes in a bit to like Black History Month. Like there really shouldn't be a Black History Month in America. Like Black history is American history. White history is it's all American history.
Yeah.
And I think even that like the divide between this is the Black history part. This is kind of that disgusting part.
Yeah, that disgusting part we don't want to talk about. That's
not
America.
America's all the good parts of history, but like no, these weren't two separate.
Yeah, these didn't happen in two separate places. This is the same place.
It was the same country that had slaves that was also building. You know, like you have to kind of look at these things together. So yeah. Okay. I think that's all I really had. Like, things I learned in like moments like that.
Yep, that's all I have as well.
Okay. What's next?
The next question is, when do you wish you'd seen this, and what do you think is a good time for other people to see this?
Okay. Yeah, I guess for this one, my answer is a little different. I honestly didn't like this one that much.
You didn't?
No, but here's why.
Okay.
To me, it very much came off as a like almost like an audiobook with just like generic Black struggle photos in the background. So for me personally, I would have much preferred to just read his book.
Okay.
Or read the book he didn't. I guess he didn't finish the book, so I don't know exactly what like would have been cut off. But I would have loved to read his book.
Yeah.
And just kind of because I assume most of like the long speeches came straight from the book. So like those are the parts I really enjoyed. And the visuals, in 2020, I'm sorry, I did not need to see all the visuals. Or 2021, I guess now.
I forgot.
No, but it's honestly just that kind of fatigue of just seeing all these things, and it's the same story. Like if I wanted to, I can go on Twitter and see the same pictures today. You know, so for me personally, I didn't really need to see it, but I really liked the content. And again, also with him comparing like MLK, Malcolm, and Medgar, I imagine in the book he would have had a lot more on Medgar, so I would have appreciated that more. So I would say read the book instead. And I say that having not read the book, but I would say read the book. And, but yeah, whenever you can, or whenever you feel the desire to, I think it's always a good time once you kind of get that awareness of what America is. So I think, like you said last time, that like early, late high school, I guess, wherever, maybe early college, post high school, I don't know, like somewhere around that age, I guess.
I had a completely different perspective of this. I didn't find it as like the first documentary we watched for this whole series was 13. This one was not as heavy to me as 13, because 13's pretty like heavy. So this felt lighter. I almost feel like you could watch it earlier, like if you were 13, 14 instead of it just, I think it also has to do with the way his voice sounded.
Yeah.
It was just, or the narrator's voice sounded, it was just very soothing and just like, he was saying a lot of inspirational things, and I just
no, I honestly kind of agree with that kind of thing though, because I think this one seemed a lot more like he was just kind of explaining this is the way things are, but like almost like not a pleasant way, but in a very like matter of fact way that just wasn't very like
almost like if you were going to a lecture and you were giving it, because it makes sense if he's a professor.
It's almost like he wasn't attaching his own emotions to it. But you could tell there was anger because this is something you should be outraged about.
Like like you know the emotion, but he's not saying it.
Whereas 13th, I felt like everyone was kind of angry and like it was very much like pointing fingers, a much more accusatory.
It was like that thing where like if you're talking about something, you're getting passionate, and like 13th, you can't help but yell. But in this one, you can kind of like step back a little bit more and not have that yelling.
I'd agree, and that's kind of like why I go back to why I want to read him, because like I just feel like he was able to string words together in such like unique ways.
I would watch this again. I was like 13th I could not see again.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd watch it again, but I'd love to see his full interviews. Like I'd love to see the full interviews, full speeches for him, things like that.
Yeah. But, that's why I feel as though because it wasn't as like heavy as 13th, I feel like you could watch it earlier.
No, I agree. Like this one, I also think I would watch this one again before.
Okay. What were your overall feelings while watching the documentary? That's our last question.
Okay, overall. All right, you want to start off on this one?
Yes. I felt mostly very calm and very interested. He brought up a lot of good points, and like we've been saying, the way he puts words together is just like nothing short of a masterpiece. I also thought that looking at things through the lens of art, whether it be like movies and like speaking and like religion and kind of like that, instead of like the systems that oppress us, kind of like the things that come out of those systems, looking at those almost, if that makes even a little bit of sense. But I really liked it. And his voice is very calming, and I could just listen to him talk. I could honestly probably listen to read the phone book, whoever this narrator was.
Yeah, okay. I'd say my feelings are like, kind of like appreciative of the story.
Yeah.
And of the narrative. And again, like you said, it was kind of calming and soothing, so it was almost like a more hopeful look back on this. Like
it was more hopeful.
Okay, this is where we've come from. We've acknowledged that now. What are we doing now? That was kind of like the
that
tone
kind of was
it,
like the thesis.
And like even that point where he said like the question we have to answer now as America is, I don't remember what the question was, but he had a question for white people to answer.
Oh, I know what the question is. It was like, why do you need N-word?
Why did you need me to be that? To play that role?
Because I am not that. Why did you need that?
I'm just me, you know.
I'm just a person. Why did you need that?
So I think that kind of captures my like feeling of it. You know, it was almost like I was into it for the question. You know, like for I wanted to learn. You know, like there wasn't that same like, oh, I'm angry at the past. I'm angry at this. It was more like, okay, I want to learn at the past and see where we can go from here and kind of things like that.
It kind of also speaks to what he even said about Malcolm X, where he was just articulating the struggle for people. What Malcolm X did was a lot of times he just like articulated it so that people can like see and like be like, okay, we're not making this up. Like someone like we really are experiencing this. It kind of gave me those kind of vibes where it was like he's putting together in words I probably will never know. Like exactly what has happened, how I feel, and like how I know that this isn't like something I'm making up. Like he's doing all that, and then just like saying, okay, now what are we gonna do?
Alright, that was
I Am Not Your Negro.
So,
I was really about to say 13th, which makes no sense.
Yeah, but if you haven't seen it already, check it out. Like I said, I recommend the book, even though I haven't read it. Like, maybe check out the book too, I don't know. But yeah.
We should start a book club.
Maybe that's our next housekeeping. Like, comment, subscribe.
Ring the bell for notifications. If you have any suggestions for movies or stuff for us to watch, you can leave them in the comments down below. We do movies on Tuesdays and Fridays, and on Sundays we do music and TV shows. All of our socials will be linked in the description down below, and